Let's take some time to talk about the Allen & Heath Z16FX. Allen & Heath is the brand, Z is the series, 16 is the size of the console, FX stands for the internal reverb unit that is on the console. One of the things that I tell people is if you can understand a channel strip, you're going to understand the whole console. This is a analog console, and so we're going to dive down channel 1, and then we're going to go across the routing, and you'll be able to understand the layout of the console. We have a couple different inputs here to work with. We have mic level, which is the XLR, and then we have line level, which is 1/4-inch jack. We have another 1/4-inch jack, which is an insert jack. This will allow us to actually, at the preamp stage, interrupt the signal, send it to outboard equipment. It can be reverb, it can be compressor, it can be EQ, and then bring the signal back in at the preamp level and then continue the signal flow. I use that on inserting on like pulpit mics, lapel mics, podium mics. Whenever I need to get maximum gain before feedback, I'll add extra processing at this level. So mic level is where a typical microphone is going to be. That's going to be minus 40 decibels. That'll be coming in through this XLR. Line level, that can be CD players, computers, tape decks. That can be some wireless equipment, any other playback, DVRs, DVDs, Blu-ray. That will output in a line level or sort of a line level signal. So mic level comes in at minus 40 dB. We hit the preamp, it steps it up to minus 10, which is going to be our line level signal. So all the signals that happen in this console are going to be at line level. Our gain is going to be the first stage of the processing at the preamp. Our gain is going to allow us to be able to get our mixing on the fader in this area. This is a graduated 100 millimeter fader. We don't want to be mixing here. We don't want to be mixing at the top of the throw. We'll be mixing right here. So in order to do that is we'll use our gain. So we'll set our gain to where we can mix right here. Also, another side note, most of the companies from about 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock is going to be the cleanest point of that preamp, which is going to mean less noise. So if I have the preamp turned up really loud and I go to run a microphone, right here I'm distorting the input 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. You can see the peak light. If I hit PFL, we can come over here and actually look at the signal coming in on channel 1. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So running the preamp too hot, I can cause distortion, but then also I'm doing most of my mixing right here. If my preamp is too soft, I'll run this up 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. You can't hear me coming through the speakers. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So that is a good volume right there. That'll allow me a little headroom if I need to get really loud. Or I'm sorry, if I'm really soft, I can run it up high. If I get loud, I can bring it down. But this is where I want to be mixing. So the gain is going to set the stage for everything from here all the way to the speaker amplifier. So we have gain. The next button we have is called a high pass filter, or you'll see it in HPF. We have a designation here of 100 hertz, and then we got a roll-off signal. That roll-off indicates that at a very aggressive slope, we're going to be rolling off all the low frequencies below 100 hertz. So a piano middle C is 261 hertz. The humans talk about 100 to about 500-600 hertz. So that's where most of our vocal range is going to be. So 100 hertz a lot of times is unnecessary content in the typical speech, or even a soprano, an alto, a tenor, even in their range. So if we engage, which on this console, engaging the high pass filter is pushing down, if we engage that, that's going to roll off a lot of P-pops or even handling noises if you're handling a microphone. So I engage that on most of the stuff that I mix. Now pianos, bass guitars, instruments that will go down below 100 hertz effortlessly, I'll take that off. But most of the time that just helps clean up the mix. Our next section is going to be our EQ. This is a 3-band EQ. We have a high, a mid, and a low. The high and low are fixed. So HF is high frequency, MF is mid frequency, LF is low frequencies. High and low, I said, are fixed. High is fixed at 12,000 hertz or 12K. The LF, or the low frequencies, is fixed at 80 hertz. That's going to vary from console to console, but that's going to be a typical setting for the ZEDs. Now, when we are messing with the EQ, when our knobs are right here at 12 o'clock noon, straight in the center, you'll feel a detent. That detent means we are neither adding or subtracting from the gain at that frequency. So when we are here in the middle, we're at 0. If I go to the right, we're actually adding at 80 hertz. If I go to the left, we are subtracting at 80 hertz. Same with the highs. Now the mids on this console, it's a sweepable mid. Same principle. We add or we subtract. The beauty about this is you get to select what channel or what frequency you want to add at. So we can add 4,000 hertz or we can subtract 4,000, and we can go all the way down to 120 hertz, add or subtract. So I'm going to exaggerate this, but I'm going to let you hear what that does. So you can hear me talking through the microphone. I'm going to add. Okay, so here we are, 120 hertz. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 1. Now, that was exaggerated, and you won't ever do that in a show or a production, but I'm trying to show you what the sweepable frequency does. It allows you to find the offensive frequencies, or it allows you to find the frequencies that need a little bit of help. Most of the time when I'm working with my EQ, I subtract from the EQ. Anytime you add to the EQ or add to the frequencies, you're going to add the chance of feedback, okay? So in live PA is the most difficult type of sound to do because you have air conditionings, people crying, talking, phones, airplanes flying over. Not to mention, you got microphones that are feet from speakers, and then everybody in the house or everybody in the room expects to be able to hear and hear according to their deficiencies. So everybody has opinion about live PA, and we got to try to satisfy all their hearing needs. So anytime you add to the frequencies here, you're going to increase the chance of feedback. Now that doesn't mean to say you can't do that, but typically if somebody says it's too tinny in here, it's too bright, or it's too thin. Too thin means we don't have enough bass. I'll roll down the highs a little bit. Okay, if somebody says it's muddy, it's muddy, it's hard to hear, I'll try to take out some of those muddy frequencies. So a typical speech pattern on my EQ will be 80 hertz. I'll have about 3 dB. About 200 to 300 hertz in this range. I'll do another 3 dB cut, and then I'll leave the high frequency alone, or maybe just boost it just a little to add a little bit of sizzle. So on these speakers in this room, that's not a bad sound. And if we need a little bit more presence at the bottom end, I can add a little bit of a boost. But be careful. Anytime you add, you're going to add to the chance of feedback or distortion. Okay, so our next level here is going to be our aux settings. We're looking at our channel strip, so the signal flows right down here to our faders, and then from our faders we flow over to our master. These knobs are just like the faders, only they're potentiometers instead of faders. So this row is going to be our auxiliary 1 with an auxiliary 1 master, just like this is the master for our faders. Auxiliary 2 master, auxiliary 3, which doesn't have a master because that's a post fade, and then we have an effect. So this is the effects send. So how much ever we want to send to the reverb unit, and then from the reverb unit we bring it back into our sound system through this fader, or if we need to bring it into our auxes, we bring it back through this way. So typically I set it up. This will be a choir monitor and a floor monitor and an instrument monitor, or it can be set, if you don't have a choir, it can be a floor monitor, it can be a piano monitor, it can be an organ monitor, or it can be a floor monitor, a piano monitor, or it doesn't have to be used at all. So this is the mix for our house speakers. This is going to be the mix for, typically is going to be our monitors on the stage. Our reverb, send, and then this is our return. I don't ever put reverb on the spoken word. Now I usually put reverb on when somebody's singing. If it's an instrument, I'll put reverb on, and the best way to describe what reverb does is it takes off the rough edges and it just kind of smooths over the edge. we're trained as a society to want to hear reverb because everything that we hear on the radio, on CDs, on recordings, it's going to have reverb in it. Reverb is a natural occurrence of the acoustics of the room, but a lot of our rooms can be over attenuated, so we need to add some of that reverb back. So what is reverb? We are set right here on a number 12, which is a hall. Okay, so I'm just going to bring that reverb into here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not a singer, but you get the point. So just a little bit of reverb is going to help when somebody's singing. But if I was talking, a reverb would make me sound like I'm in a cave or in a cathedral or in a really big room or potentially a parking garage. So a good starting point for reverb, I like halls. They're easy to work with. And then if you want to dive in, you can actually change the parameters of the delays within each of these reverbs. Okay, so now we have a pan. If we're running this in stereo, which would be a left speaker and a right speaker, we can actually pan our microphones to left and right. Typically, you'll just leave it in the middle. Mute is great. Where we use a mute is we'll do a sound check. So let's say we have a quartet singing. Okay, so a quartet's right here. We do our sound check. Blah, 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 blah. Sounds good. I mute it. That way, when we come back for the service or the event or the show, all I have to do is unmute, and that quartet is right where we left it during our sound check. Now, one thing we got to take into fact, there's going to be adrenaline. So I can't say this is exactly going to be the best mix because this was done at a sound check when there was nobody in the room. But now that it's showtime, it's service time, it's an event, nerves are going to be flying, adrenaline, excitement. So somebody may be softer, somebody may be more nervous, somebody may be excited and just really sing out. So you got to be able to mix on the fly. But the mutes allow us to save a setting and then mute it and then come back during showtime and then pick up right where we left off. Okay, so our PFL stands for pre-fade listen. Pre-fade listen allows us to be able to listen or solo or cue. It depends what the manufacturer calls it. It allows us to be able to listen to the channel in our headphones. So we have a headphone jack right there. We have a headphone knob right here. So let's say I want to listen to make sure somebody has their microphone turned on. So if this is a wireless mic, I can actually put it in my headphones and independent of what the fader is or the mute button is, I can listen to this channel. Let's say we have a DVD player or a computer or something that we're bringing back into the system audio-wise and we want to cue it up. We can actually put the DVD player in our headphones and actually cue it up according to what we hear. And as long as this is muted, this will not go through the sound system. Another time that I will use a PFL, again, let's go back to a quartet. We're unfamiliar with the voices. Somebody's a little flat, somebody's a little sharp. I can listen to each person in my headphones one at a time, and then I can find out, oh, this is the person that doesn't sound very good. So then I can actually bring them down into the mix and help the overall sound of the mix. Okay, so PFL, pre-fade listen. All of these faders are the inputs, and this section is going to be our output bus. I like to leave my masters right at 0. 0 is known as unity gain. At unity gain, we are neither amplifying or attenuating the frequency. So unity gain is going to be the cleanest, quietest point in our signal. We're neither adding or subtracting to volume. Volume is electricity. Electricity is going to be noise. So that's why I want to do most of my mixing right in this area and then leave my masters at 0. It's also a good reference point. That way I always know if these are at 0, I know what's going to happen volume-wise over here. Same with my aux masters. There's a 0 and there's a 0. You can see they are turned at 0. 0 is a great starting spot, and it's also a good reference point. Okay? So that is a quick overview of the Allen & Heath ZED16FX. Our takeaway points, we got gain, we got EQ, we got aux routing, and then we have our master fader routing. If you can understand one channel strip, you're going to understand all the channel strips. So remember, think lineal. We got a vertical line here, and then we got a horizontal line here. Everything works together. You understand one channel strip, you got the whole thing. You understand a little console, you can graduate to a bigger console really easy if you understand all the different points on this.